Hello, and welcome back to a Bible study on the book of Genesis. In this video, I'd like to discuss the fifth day of creation, starting in verse 20 of chapter 1. And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So, I'd like to start by summarizing the work of the previous 4 days. First of all, in the previous videos, I've identified two concepts or first principles on which the work of each day is based. So the work of the first day is based, and it symbolizes the concepts of unity and affirmation. The work of the second day is rooted in plurality and negation. And the work of the third day is based on totality and limitation. And then we said that the fourth day is based on substance and possibility. And so the fifth day, I'm going to say here, is based on causality and actuality, whereas the sixth day has to do with community and reciprocity and necessity. The other thing we said is that in terms of the moral purpose symbolized by the work on that day, we said the first day symbolizes righteousness, and then second day symbolizes blessedness, and the third day symbolizes holiness in terms of the concepts, righteousness, blessedness, and holiness. Whereas the fourth day deals with not righteousness in itself, but insofar as that righteousness is to dwell in a person. It's not just an abstract concept, but there are to be persons who are righteous. And so, accordingly, I'm going to say that on the fifth day, there are creatures, there are objects of creation that symbolize blessedness, insofar as it is to dwell in persons. And then on the sixth day, we'll talk about holiness, personal holiness. So that's the outline. The other thing that I'd like to address is this idea, the idea of freedom, which I think we can see on the fifth day, and it has to do with the idea of the concept of causality in a person. The causality in a simply an object of creation. Well, things are subject, inanimate matter is subject to the law of causality, but it looks when it refers to a person, it refers to their ability to move of their own will. And so I think we can see that on the fifth day as well, that there's a freedom symbolized by fish and fowl. So let's look at the text and see if we can see those things. And God said, Let the waters bring forth. Okay, so the waters here, since it is the waters bringing forth, I understand the fifth day to be parallel to the second day. And so I expect the concepts of plurality and negation to receive a, you might say, an objective manifestation in terms of creatures, the creatures that God is creating. So let the waters bring forth abundantly. So there I see, again, plurality, the abundance. And it's not to say that there isn't an abundance or a variety on the fourth day in terms of celestial, in terms of the lights, in terms of sun, moon, and stars. because Paul does say, one star differeth from another star in glory. So it's there as well. It's just not stated in the account we have of the fourth day of creation. It is stated in the account of the fifth day of creation, so I understand it to be pointing specifically to the concept of plurality. So let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature. So there's the idea of causality, the creature that moves, that causes itself to move, you might say. That hath life, there I understand, so the moving creature that hath life, so on the one hand you have the causality, and then on the other you have the actuality in accordance with that causality. Because it has the power of motion, we can say that it has life. It has a kind of actuality or presence in the world. And fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So that word open suggests to me that there's a freedom here. A freedom, not that it's not shared by, for example, beasts or men on the sixth day, but that the fifth day and the fish and fowl made on the fifth day specifically symbolize the freedom. And fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Right. So I want to talk a little bit about the distinction between fish and fowl. So I understand that distinction to be based on the difference between happiness and blessedness. So I said the fifth day has to do with blessedness. And there is a difference in concept between what we call happiness and blessedness. Happiness is the satisfaction of our desires, and that refers to sensation, simply having the things that we want. And I think I said on the second day that the waters under the heaven signify the objects of sensation, or just sensation, the plurality of sensation, not necessarily subordinated to God's law, but just as is. So I understand that fish would symbolize happiness, and the fowl would symbolize blessedness, which is happiness united to righteousness. So there's righteousness. We are to be happy in accordance with our righteousness, and that union is blessedness. So and that, I think, comes from the idea, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So it's not simply under the heaven and referring to something earthly, which I understand happiness to be like that. But insofar as that happiness is united to our righteousness, to our obedience to the law. And I think that would be why the waters here are bringing forth abundantly. It's not the firmament. The firmament does not bring forth the fowl. The waters bring forth the fowl, the fish and the fowl. So just as we said on the second day that there are waters below the firmament, symbolizing sensation, and there are waters above the firmament, symbolizing you might say, the symbolism of sensation, insofar as it reveals heaven to us. It symbolizes our moral purpose. So also, there are fish to symbolize, to indicate happiness by itself, and then there are fowl to indicate that happiness, insofar as it is to be united to our righteousness. Okay, let's move on. Verse 21, and God created great whales. So here, again, I would say the great whales refers to something akin to the abundance or the plurality. There's a greatness. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So in verse 22, and God blessed them. So there's the blessing. And the blessing is, and God blessed them, saying, so the blessing I understand to be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. So it is this power of reproduction, the causality that we spoke of in the in terms of the moving creature that had life. It's not just an internal causality, but it is further symbolized by the power, not just the power of motion, but the power of reproduction. The reason for that is that what is good here is the kind. It's not just the individual, it's not just the matter that has been given life, but it is the kind. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So the kind is good. The individual member of that kind is good and is blessed, which means, again, if blessedness is to come from righteousness, then it is appropriate for the symbols of blessedness, the fish and fowl, to reproduce according to their kind. So that I understand to be the symbolism of the work of the fifth day, and we're actually going to come back to this idea of blessedness as a kind of perpetuation and reproduction. But I do want to just try to explain a little more clearly what I'm saying. So I'll put it this way. I would define righteousness or the good, as a concept that contains within itself the ground of a corresponding intuition. So this is kind of the philosophical aspect, I would say. It contains within itself, within the concept, so just by thinking about the good, I already have a sufficient reason to make that good a reality. And that's what I mean by intuition here, is that it's the immediate representation in the world. And then the concept, insofar as there is an intuition of a thing that I conceive, I'd say that that thing exists. So if it's good, then it contains within itself the ground of its own existence. Now the symbols, or the objects of blessedness, are good. If something is blessed, it is blessed in accordance with righteousness. And so it does contain not only the intuition of a thing, but the concept of that thing, the kind. God created them after their kinds. And so each individual member of that kind should have not by itself, I would say, but should have a power of reproducing according to the kind. Because if there's the concept there in that kind, then it should contain within itself the ground of a corresponding intuition. A way of putting that is that each member, each individual of that kind, is a kind of, you might say, concept to itself. It's a good thing by itself, and therefore it also contains the ground of producing another member of its own kind. So I hope I hope that's clear. But that is what I see as the sense of that, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply." And we'll come back to that because the word uh, blessing or bless is used on the 6th day as well, but it's also used on the 7th day. So we'll want to talk about the significance of that. But in the meantime, I hope this video has been helpful, and I'll see you next time.